Welcome to our first episode of Global Educators Unite, where educators meet to discuss content, methodology, parent teacher relationship. You name it, we meet to discuss it. As I said before, if there's anything that you want us to discuss, please leave it in the comment box below. Thank you. Good afternoon, my Global Educators Unite fans. We are here today with none other than Mrs. Karilee Campbell. We have been friends for over 20 years, and she has taught in several countries. She's a veteran in the field of education. She also went to Wilma's Girls School, a graduate of the Mico Teachers College. She also went to the University of the West Indies. But you know what? This is not about me and bragging about her, so I'm going to let her do some bragging about herself. So, Mrs. Campbell, please to tell us a little bit about your educational background.
So I did my teaching qualification in Jamaica, at the Mico University, the Mico. I studied English and Spanish, those were my majors. And I left there, went to UE. I got a BA in philosophy and international relations. And then I did my master's here in the UK, and I did it in curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. So in terms of education, I had to qualify though. So even though I was a qualified teacher in Jamaica, coming to the UK, it wasn't recognized. So I had to qualify to get what they refer to as the British QTS. So as an overseas, I did the overseas trained teacher program because that was what was available when I was qualifying. It took me a year. I had to teach in a school, getting paid at an unqualified rate. But then I had to put together a folder to show that I understood the education system here in the UK, that I would be able to manage my classes and the admin bits of education here. And then I had an assessor come in, I think it was about 4 or 5 times to watch me teach, taught me through my folder, have me do presentations, and then I was awarded the QTS after sitting an English, math, and computer science um, test as well, along with everything else that I'd had. It's
Oh,
interesting when you travel, the things you got to do.
it is. Wow, thank you for that because that part I did not know that you had to do the folder and the QT and all of that because here in the US all we do is well you have to get something called an international accreditation certification. So you have to get your degree that you did or your associate that you did in Jamaica. You had to get that evaluated. And then after evaluation, they decide whether or not you actually have the methods that you need to teach. And then you have to take
Okay.
something called the praxis exam. And then they give you some time to take that as well. So it's quite similar, but theirs seem a little bit more intense. I'm not sure because unless you're there, you wouldn't know. So
That's true.
yeah. So how many countries have you taught in?
It's four. So Jamaica, the Bahamas, England, and the Cayman Islands.
Wow. So of these four countries, which would you say was the most challenging to teach in?
I would hold Britain. I think the kids here are I think it's probably a cultural thing. Uh, Education in Jamaica and generally in the Caribbean is valued. Not to say that it's not valued here, but I think more so on our side of the world. So most of the kids here are into not necessarily education, but opportunities that will lend themselves to them getting rich quick. And that's not necessarily going to be had through going to school, going to universities and all of that. So in terms of the attitude towards education, it can be a challenge getting them on board, getting them to engage with curriculum content, getting them to participate in extracurricular activities. But I would hold that UK for me, I have found it to be the most challenging of all the school backgrounds that I've had experience with.
That is interesting. And I do see a difference with that as well because in the Caribbean, we are taught that education is the only way out. And you know that without education, you cannot get anywhere in life. I remember us reciting. Do you remember The Heights of Great Men?
reached and kept were not attained by
By
sudden
sudden
flight.
flight, wait while their companion slept, were upward calling into the night. I remember us chanting that in primary school. And so those attributes that were instilled in us. So we do take education more seriously in Jamaica, from my knowledge, and in the Caribbean countries than they do here. So what advice do you have for Jamaican young teachers who would want to be teaching abroad, or they're looking at this as their next step? What advice do you have for those educators?
Make sure you're back broad. Do you know what? I believe that everybody or every young teacher should have the opportunity to teach outside of their own culture because you learn so much. But my advice would be not to give up because sometimes when you take yourself out of what you're used to and immerse yourself into something new, after the first week or two, you are ready to just go back home and just call it quits. But I would say stick it out because there is a lot to learn and a lot to be had in terms of adding to your repertoire and your working experience. Um, so the advice would be it's a challenging journey, but it is worth it. It's worth it because at the end of the day, you will have a wealth of information and knowledge and experiences to share. And if it is that you do want to go back to your country of origin, think of the wealth of resource that you will be offering to them. So if you get the opportunity, why not? Go ahead, do it.
I love that. Thank you for that advice to our young teachers or our young educators coming up. And what are some of the strategies you use to maintain classroom discipline?
So I have found that here, especially seating plans work for me. Nobody not coming into my area and sit down where they want. That don't work for me. I find one, it helps me to remember the names faster. And it allows for me to be able to manage my learners because it's an inclusive education system here. So you get a myriad of learners. So the very able and sometimes the less than able, and you have to facilitate for everybody. So lessons have to be structured in such a way where even learners who might not even know the language, because my specialism is English, and I have had learners in my classroom who just learning to speak English, but I'm having a lesson, Shakespearean lesson, and I still have to facilitate them because the expectation is that it's an inclusive environment, so you have to prepare. So it's being able to structure your lesson in such a way where everybody has a takeaway. In my motto is everybody can learn, everybody must learn. So anybody entering my room and leaving after that hour must have made some kind of progress. Um, that's how we were taught at Mico. That's how we were taught at UCL. So you
Everybody
know,
learn. It's so funny that you said that because my motto is everybody can learn, just
yeah,
not in the same way and may not be on the
yeah,
same way, but we're all
yeah,
capable of learning.
yeah.
That's one of
We
my.
just have to find that niche to engage them. But you as a facilitator, as an educator, the onus is on us. But once we find it, progress will be had. So it's just finding the niche, but everybody can.
As you say that, this was not on my questions to ask, but can you share a story with me of a student that you had that you think you were not getting the niche, as you call it, and
Uh-huh.
some of the strategies that you used to get through to that particular student?
Um, I've had many students. I've had students who threatened me, students who walked out. Um, but you know what? I can't think of one particular one, but in terms of strategies, um, trying to have separate and apart from that whole classroom environment where they're with their peers and they're putting on a show, you can try to find an opportunity to have a one-to-one with them. And sometimes having that one-to-one kind of lays the way for them to be more open and accepting of you. I've found as well over the years that students tend to be so difficult with anything that's new. They challenge anything that breaks away from routine. So you come and stepping in with you want the best, but them not gonna see that. All them gonna see is a new person will come, and then probably a bad pitney will always a misbehave. So as the teacher, them come, them leave them, so they're expecting that from you. So being able to just have that one-to-one, sometimes that opens the way. Sometimes you can have a discussion with a colleague and find out what works with that colleague. Sometimes calling home and having that conversation. Most of my students know I don't play. So I will just pick up the phone and call the mommy and the daddy, and all of us can sit down there and have that conversation to trash out what needs to be trashed out. Setting targets, letting them know this is where you at, this is where I want you to be, and this is what you need to do in order to get to where you need to be. Just sitting down not only with the kid but with the parents, and then putting in place things that will help them to get to where you want them to get to, or help them to get the grade. So like organizing intervention strategies, taking them, finding out sometimes what engages them and using that to inform how you deliver the curriculum to them or get them to deliver to you. Sometimes I've had students taking over parts of my lesson and planning with me, so it's there are different things that you can do. It's just finding a way. Sometimes I find students don't like you to be constantly teaching. Not teaching, but talking at them. So it's finding ways of getting them to engage in different ways in that learning process.
Awesome, I love that. And you also hit the nail on the head for the next question, because the next question is about parents and how do you communicate with parents, especially those problematic parents. Because we all know that I have some parents who I love dearly. And I'm telling you, I know as soon as I communicate with them, I'm going to see a change in that child. And then there are those parents that you pray before you call, because you're like,
Yes.
"Hmm, Jesus, this is a day." And so, what advice do you have to give to our young educators as to how to deal with some of these problematic situations when it comes to these combative parents, these parents who are so.
Again, if I'm new to that institution, I will have conversations with my colleagues, the staff room again is a wealth of information. And I have been lucky in the fact that many other colleagues that I've had to work with have been supportive. So, we share. I make sure that it's important that you know the child. So I will do my background before even having a conversation. Yeah. So make sure you know going in. Start off with the positive as well. So you must can find something positive for somebody.
So sometimes it's hard. You can go
I
sometimes
know,
hard,
I know. But
but
start off with the positive. You ease it with the positive, and then you have the difficult conversation. So you might, flag up, and you always put forward the message that our job is for them to make progress. We only want what's best for the child, and a lot of them are, no matter how problematic they are receptive of that. Kind of know you want their child to do well. They know that you want their child to make progress. So usually they come on board, usually 90 something percent of the time.
there's always that one outlier, that one.
Well, and then with that, what can you do? You can only do what you can do, but always try to be positive. Don't be cantankerous. Don't engage in anything that is combative. Just be positive, be professional, and just always try to work in the best interest of the child. That would be the advice.
Awesome, awesome. So before I close out this interview, Mrs. Karilee Campbell-Thomas, is there anything that you want to share with our audience about education and the journey and the things that you have accomplished over the years? And listen, this format is for educators to brag on themselves. And why I say that is because a lot of us who are teaching internationally, sometimes we might not get that recognition that we do deserve because of one reason or another. We all know our environments that we work in. And so sometimes we don't get the recognition for the things that we're doing. And so this is your time to brag on you. Tell me something about Mrs. Karilee Campbell-Thomas that you want the world to know about you, some things that you've accomplished over your years of teaching.
I don't know how to brag about me. So
And
that's a hard one.
I know, but listen. And that is the thing. We have been taught that it's sometimes vain to talk about us. But we need to understand that if you don't talk about you, if you don't see the good in you, if you don't recognize the good things that you have done, then why do you expect others to recognize it?
Well, that's fair, you know. Coming from a grandfather who used to plow the land and a grandmother who used to sell in at a sweet shop, you know. Um, was it our generation that was the first generation to do tertiary education and excel at it? Um, I just feel blessed to have been able to touch and impart and impact so many young minds in the few countries that I've managed to visit, and that reflects and represents itself in my passes, you know, in the fact that many of them have gone on to even join the teaching profession themselves, gone on to be doctors, and can we touch everybody? But
But take that too. If you remember when we taught together in the Bahamas at Jordan,
yeah,
and
yeah,
apparently some of our students now, I don't know if you keep in touch with some of them from Jordan Prince Williams, but we have students from that batch that we both taught together who are
yeah.
lawyers, doctors,
Okay, yeah.
so
So
those
we have impacted. Sometimes we don't know, sometimes we do. And for me, that's it. That's my passion. That's my joy. That's what I take away. And I hope to be able to do that until the Lord says, it's time.
Miss Campbell, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me this evening to share some of your experiences in the profession of all professions. Of all professions, the most rewarding and the least compensated. To my viewers, I would like to thank you for viewing another episode of Global Educators Unite. Please hit the notification bell, please, so that you can learn when we or you can know about, you can be notified when we post another episode. Also comment. Tell us some of the things that you want us to be talking about as educators, because we are here to help our fellow educators, to help parents, to help teachers. We're here to help with methodology, content, you name it, we are here, and we have a resource of knowledge when it comes to Caribbean educators. So please join us. And thank you, Mrs. Campbell. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you. My
Thank you
first
for having me.
of Global Educators Unite.
Thank you for inviting me. It has been a pleasure. And whenever you want me to come back, happy to. One of the things you might want to focus on, special needs, special education needs. That's quite a topic that you might want to explore. So,
That's one of my babies as well, right? And
uh,
I'm going to
so
be
yeah,
exploring as
yeah.
well.
So just add that to your list.
Awesome. And you can drop that in the comments as well so that it stays on my radar as well.
I will do that. You take care. All the best.
Thank you, Miss Campbell.
God bless.
God bless you too. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Global Educators Unite, where educators meet to discuss content, pedagogy, parent teacher relationship. We are here to cater to all educational needs. Please hit that notification bell and also do not forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow our viewers, okay? Let's turn this into something great.